So as you might have heard, the old Peace Lutheran Church is being demolished this week. Or actually just the bell tower is being taken down. The bells are being removed, I'm told. The tower will be demolished in a systematic way, and the rest of the building will remain. It is still unclear what is going to be done with the rest of the building. I don't think anyone knows yet. And the reason that this is such a big story is, if you're young, you might not realize the Peace Lutheran Church has a big part of the history of Galion. It's a big, beautiful church. It's one of the most centrally located churches right there uptown. It's been around for almost 200 years, and as a Lutheran church, it represents a relationship with the specifically German heritage of Galion. A lot of this is stuff that we have very much lost touch with in the last so many decades, but it's important to wonder when such a culturally important building comes down like that. Well, what is it that is taking its place, or what has already taken its place? Second story for today, you might have noticed on Facebook that there have been a number of posts recently concerning parents needing help with Christmas gifts for their children for this Christmas, as well as a number of posts about groups and individuals and churches who are doing these kinds of organizations, because this is one thing that Galion's really good at, is they do a lot of this kind of stuff. A lot of the churches around here have these Christmas drives, whatever you want to call them. And as we all know, the economy is not the greatest this year, especially for younger people, younger parents. And so since we've been seeing all of these posts, it would appear that it is not that easy for people to find the help that they need. But we all know that it's out there. We all know that this is something that all throughout Galion, there's people who would just love to help with this sort of thing. They like doing it. They like being a part of the lives of young kids in the community. And so if you know any organizations, churches, individuals, maybe yourself, you'd like to help out with this sort of thing, or you know of a program that's already in place to do this, put the word out there. Let us know. You can put it in the comments of this, or just search on Facebook in general. And if you are a parent or someone who's looking for this kind of help for Christmas for your children, just know that, like I said, there's a lot of people who are really happy to help with this kind of thing. This is something that Galion can be very proud of. This is something that Galion is very good at. And so I would encourage families who might need this kind of help to not be ashamed to seek it out, because trust me, it's out there. Finally, I want to go over quickly 3 stories coming out of Washington, D.C. that I think actually have a lot to do with Galion, or at least these stories might have a lot to do with Galion. So in just the past few weeks, Donald Trump has said 3 things, and it's a little bit mysterious as to what these... It's a little bit unclear as to what these stories might pan out to be, but they're interesting nonetheless. First of all, he announced a few weeks back that there was going to be a $2,000 tariff dividend, so like a stimulus check given out to every American. Or I believe he actually clarified that it would be every non-high income American. So obviously this would be big for Galion. This would be big for any community, for everyone to suddenly get a $2,000 check. In terms of economics and fiscal policy for the country, it's a strange move. It's a lot of money that's going to have to be spent or printed, and it's still unclear whether or not that's actually going to happen. But even if it doesn't happen, it's interesting that the idea was floated out there to begin with. So that's one. The second one is just last week, I believe, he floated the idea of abolishing the federal income tax entirely. And again, President Trump likes to throw these kinds of things out there and see what sticks, and they don't always come to fruition. But it's interesting to consider why he might be throwing something out like that, why he might want us to latch on to an idea like that at a time like this. And just consider what kind of change that would be for Galion, for everyone who works to no longer be paying federal income taxes. That's a big part of your check. That's a lot of money in all of our pockets. So the first one was the $2,000 stimulus. The abolishment of the federal income tax is an even bigger idea than that. And then third, you've probably heard a little bit about the back and forth with the Epstein files. It's been going on for years. And then recently this new bill came up in Congress to release the files. They're going to release the files. They're doing that in the next 2 weeks, I think. And once again, we will see see whether the files that actually get released, if they do, if they're not redacted, if they have any interesting information on them or not, that all remains to be seen, as it always does. But again, consider why the president, or the entire Congress actually, would be focused on something like that at a time like this, and what the whole Epstein file release story might actually be about, since we've been hearing about it for years now, and we keep hearing the files are about to be released, the files are on my desk, they have all kinds of names, you have no idea, but nothing ever actually comes out of it, or at least not much. And so the reason that I grouped these three stories together, the $2,000 check, abolishing the income tax altogether, and releasing the Epstein files, is all of these stories are pointing towards at least the possibility of a profound shift between the federal government of the United States and its people. And so that's why this is relevant to Galion, because if the federal government were to suddenly change its entire relationship to the rest of the country, for example, the income tax would be a huge deal, the Epstein files apparently would be a big deal, then all of a sudden, little towns like Galion suddenly find themselves in a position that they have not been in a long time, because for decades now, Galion has kind of operated in a very similar way to every other town in the Midwest, in Ohio, or really in the country, which is that a lot of our relationships economically that we have with the country and with the world have to do with the policies of the federal government. And so if that were to change all of a sudden, then suddenly we might find ourselves with new opportunities or new responsibilities or new problems. Can you think of anything that might change in Galion if some of these policies were to come to fruition? And if not, why do you think that all of these things are being brought up if they're not actually going to happen?